What was running through your mind as you rewatched it? Like, what's it like watching a game like that after just so quickly?
Well, I mean, you're making sure everything matches with how you remember it, and there will be times to comb back through it in more detail and make sure that we're taking the right things from the game. I don't know that the day or the week after it is the time you have to do that. You got to be able to detach the emotion from it and go back through and just make sure, like any game we played, you got to go back through and take some of the things you can learn from it going forward.
You mentioned, the locker room, the flight home, those things. What was that like? I mean, when you look at what was that like?
Yeah, the locker room very somber, obviously, and not fun. No one was enjoying being in there and processing through that. And I can only speak for myself. I'm sitting there thinking about all the things that, in any loss. I've said it a million times after every loss. You guys always heard me, the things that stick out and you just wish you could have done differently. And I imagine, knowing the type of team we had, everybody was going through that. Here's the one thing I could have done differently that maybe we would have won the game. And so again, it's difficult. The next day you're on a flight, you're going home, and you're tired, and so it's no different than any flight you probably had going home from Vegas. Where you're just exhausted and just want to go home and just take a nap. It's probably really similar to that.
Bad day at the craps table.
Yeah.
2 years ago, we were up here. It was Burrow. It's all about Burrow.
Yeah.
How long ago does that team?
Yeah.
And why did it come together so quickly?
Yeah, it feels like a lifetime ago, to be honest with you. That was probably the last time we were at the Combine, right?
Correct.
And it just feels like, again, in this league, every year is like dog years. It feels like 7. How much goes by and how many things change with your team. Really proud of the job our personnel department has done, adding the right pieces to the puzzle. The job the coaching staff has done of making these pieces fit and getting the most out of them. And the players buying into everything that we've asked them to do. And taking leadership and making this their own team. We've got our offense, we've got our defense, we've got our special teams, but there are moments we ask the players to take it over and make it their own and have great ownership in it. And we're really at the stage this year where they did that, and really proud of the group of players for doing that.
As you guys looked at the draft last year and talked to Burrow about drafting Jamar, what did you learn about Burrow and kind of how he looks at players and as he goes the talent evaluation process as he thinks through some of that?
Yeah, I wouldn't overstate that one. That was a pretty easy one for him. It's, you played with the guy for 2 years and he scores 20 touchdowns in a season. And really, you were looking for a red flag, and there was no red flag. And so that's really all you were waiting to hear, because we could see all the great stuff Jamar did. You just want to make sure it was a fit, and certainly from Joe's standpoint it was, and it's worked out really well for us.
But is there something that maybe you learn about your quarterback in that way that you don't see in other aspects and how you deal with it?
I don't think that's a great example, to be honest with you, just because they played together. But there's certainly other players where I sit down with Joe and show kind of what I'm seeing from prospects, and Duke's done the same thing in a lot of different ways. He's a huge part of what we do, and this is certainly a quarterback-driven league, and we want to make sure that we're all aligned there. And so, it's not like Joe sits in every meeting every day and is a part of everything we're doing, but I certainly value his opinion because he put in the work, he sees it the right way, and anything that can make our team better. If he's got a thought on a player, this guy works well with me, and it's always something for us to consider.
Did you ask him for any thoughts before he left?
No, I think everybody just needed some separation and some time to themselves. You guys included. You guys are probably tired of being around us and around each other.
Well, when you talk about dog years, you just have to look at some of this.
I hope he and a lot of the other players are enjoying their time off, because they deserve it, and they need a chance to be able to take some time to themselves.
The offensive line's obviously been a huge topic, will continue to be. Has Joe ever said anything to you or mentioned anything? It doesn't seem like he has, about any hits or anything, but has that ever come up?
Yeah, I mean, it's everybody just controls what they can control, again, I know what the narrative is, and I get it. We don't want our quarterback to be sacked or hit like he was, but at the same time, the other side of it needs to be mentioned as well. Those guys did a lot of great things for us. You don't just run for 1,000 yards and have 2,000-yard receivers, and the quarterback have the year he had, and be able to win all the games you did with the guys that weren't doing a really good job. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to evaluate our entire team and figure out ways to get better. and that's what our purpose will be these next couple weeks.
Something Nick Caserio said, Zach, was that in a situation like this, when he's talking to young players, he lets them kind of tell him what they know about the game, and because it depends really on what they experienced in college, whether or not he can draw anything from them. I'm curious if you do the same sort of thing, maybe at some point where you just let them tell you what
in these interviews you're talking about. Yeah, I mean, it's not the time for you to talk. It's you only get a limited amount of time in these environments. It's important that you can ask a quick question. Is not the right way to phrase it, but a question that allows them to expand on an answer. And so you can try to gather as much information in 18 minutes as you possibly can, and then try to work around that these next couple of weeks to get as much more information as you can.
Is that where Joe really, impressed you, Burrow impressed you 2 years ago? With his total recall and all that?
Well, I would tell you, in this meeting with Joe here, it was more of an introduction. It wasn't tell us about all the. It wasn't a standard interview. It was a little bit more of the first time we got a chance to meet face to face. He knew he was going to be on the table with the first pick. We knew he was one of the few guys that we were considering. So it was a little bit different that way. You got a chance to know him over the Zooms those next couple of weeks where, okay, the football IQ matches everything you've heard, and there's no red flags there.
How exciting and important is it they have so much coaching stability? Usually we see when teams that make a deep run in the Super Bowl, their coaching staff gets plucked, but a lot of your guys are still around. How exciting is that? Really,
really good. Probably, I don't know the right word for it, but it is critical for us, and happy for Al and the job he got, there in Notre Dame. That's a tremendous opportunity for him. And James Betcher obviously has a great relationship with Lou, so he'll step in there, and we expect good things from James. And got a chance to add Derek Frazier at the offensive line spot. He and Frank have worked together before, so that'll be a great addition for us there. And then Chuck Burks, at the corner position. We played against Miami these last couple of years, and they've had a tremendous group of corners. And he's a young coach with a lot of energy and has a really solid background that we really liked. And so we think he's going to be a great fit. But you're right, there's only 3 guys there. One's an addition, and 2 are kind of replacing. So it is good to have that continuity there and feel like we'll be able to hit the ground running this spring with the evaluation part of the prospect things.
What do you think the addition of Derek Frazier will do as an assistant on that offensive line? What are you hoping that job goes in along with Ben?
Well, you just got so many bodies in that room. At times you got 15, and as the season goes, you got 11 or 12. And so I think it's good to have some of the manpower there that can help Frank. And Frank is certainly capable of doing all the work, but it's good to have people who have been around him before and can really help him. And Ben Martin will continue to do the same stuff as well. So, there's a lot of teams in the league who have 3 guys in that position. And so now we're one of those teams, and it's a guy that Frank has history with. And from my time around Derek over these last couple of weeks, it's been really good, and he's a great person, a great fit for us.
When did you, as an organization, decide to go that route and add another assistant in that room? Was it after the Super Bowl? Did you know during the year?
That one was a little bit earlier.
Sure.
And then you dealt with the other positions after the game was over. But that one we had a little bit of idea of sooner. You want to be on a timeline with these colleges. You don't want to put them in a tough spot also. So he was a guy we identified that we were interested in. And so that movement happened a little bit sooner than normal.
I've talked to you about Desmond before Ritter. You offered him. Have you talked to him since? And do you expect to see him here this week? I know you're good at quarterback, but I mean, just say hey and kind of see how the world's come full circle.
Yeah, if we cross paths, I'd prefer to stay out of his way. He's got his process he's got to go through, and he certainly knows how I feel about him. We had a great relationship back in his recruiting days, and I've always supported him from afar, but this process is about him, and I enjoy kind of watching from a distance him go through it, and hopefully he gets a great opportunity and makes a great impression on some of these teams and gets a good spot.
Are you back to pre-pandemic rules as far as prospect visits, free agent visits? Do you know if even where that stands?
You were going to tell me that. I think some of it will still be dictated by some of these schools and what state they're in, and I would imagine we all just spent some time away these last 2 weeks and saw some things that have changed out there. So I would imagine that there. I don't know. I should just shut up because I don't know. So I can talk about it.
Do you anticipate Joe being active kind of at the dinner with Riley when you guys are courting free agents? Will you lean on him in that regard again?
Well, some of that stuff's spur of the moment. That probably happened the morning of. Hey, Joe, would you come to dinner at the precinct with us? We got a lineman coming in. And again, we've got guys that want to make our team better and help us in any way possible. And so guys that are in town, oftentimes it just takes a quick phone call. Hey, this guy can help us. Mike Hilton's in town. He can help us. You want to come to dinner? And usually those guys, they come at the drop of a hat and are willing to help.
Have you picked people's brains on kind of maybe the best way to have sustained success? I mean, it's obviously very difficult to do in this league. I mean, as you've kind of studied this, or is that something you're planning on doing? And kind of what have you learned about that process?
Yeah, sure. Just ways to maximize these next 3 months going forward. And our players, they need some time off. Obviously, it's February 13th is the longest any season's gone, and the OSP dates have not changed. They're still the same as they were before, so there's still a process we're going through to make sure that we can maximize the offseason program to where we get the work done. A little bit it's been in some ways mandated for us these last 2 years with COVID, and it's already changed a little bit. It looks like this year it'll be back to normal, so we'll just have some decisions to make sure we put our guys in the best position possible to be ready when they come back in August to repeat some of the success that we've had.
Is it too soon to ask about a Super Bowl hangover, or no one asked you that a couple weeks ago?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be able to answer that. Our plans are that we're gonna be able to put in the work and be as hungry as we ever have before. So.
Was it cool to see when you guys, I mean, I know it was the day after, but see all the fans out there? Obviously that was cool, but have you felt it since just throughout the city, going to the grocery store, going to play tennis or doing whatever you're doing around the city? Have you felt a different type of hype around the team?
Yeah, I have. When it's, I'm honest when I say this. I spent 2 years, we didn't win a lot of football games. I didn't have one face-to-face interaction with a person who said anything other than something positive. And so now I think they're just more outward with it, maybe, more willing to yell across the street maybe than just walking by you on the sidewalk. But it's what makes Cincinnati special. Those of you who've lived a lot of years there or even recently have felt that and know that it's a different city than a lot of, because it's a small, big city, however you want to phrase it. Right. It's special, it's unique. There's a reason people maybe move away for a couple of years and then come back. That's how I was and my family was, and so it's not surprising to see people have the pride in the city when the teams are doing well. And so now we got to jump behind the Reds and jump behind FC Cincinnati and get a chance to be a fan here for these next couple of months and support these teams as well.
Did you get recognized on the beach? Did you get recognized on vacation?
I played tennis with the guy who swore I'd been there the week before, I knew I wasn't here the week before, but I know why maybe you're saying that. So I think I just got that face where I've seen you've been here before, and I promise you I haven't. So that's a little bit what I'm getting right now. I'm okay with that. I'm perfectly okay with that. Yeah.
How different is blending a free agent or a new player in to your culture now? And how does that maybe change what you can or how you approach guys in free agency? Maybe does that change anything with the guy you would bring in because of what you have now created?
Well, you certainly feel good about the strength of the locker room and that the leadership is about the right stuff. And so when you bring in a guy who maybe could tilt one way or the other, we got strong enough guys to make sure that they're going the right way. But it comes back to we want the talent and the character to match. And when you find those types of guys, man, it's really hard to miss. And we've just these last couple of years in free agency have done such a good job of finding those guys just through the research of talking to anybody we know who may have been associated with them in any way, played with them in any way, making sure we're not bringing the wrong people in the building. And you're not always going to be perfect there, but we're going to take a lot of pride in trying to get it right.
Duco told us a couple minutes ago that it's always much easier signing a free agent inside the building that you already know, your own free agent, as opposed to bringing somebody else in. Jesse Bates has to be, I would assume, at the very top of the list of priority. What does it mean to you when you hear so many people, both inside the organization, players and fans, want him back?
Well, he just means so much. He was drafted here before we got here, from Duke and his staff and Marvin, and they did a great job evaluating him. He's meant a lot. He's earned his captainship. He's been a 4-year starter. Those are all the things that you can cross your fingers on when you take a guy in the second round. And Jesse's met those expectations and then some, and been a tremendous person, represented this organization the right way. And so again, we're just going through the process right now of we want him back certainly, and what that looks like, we continue to work through now.
How difficult is the assessment of Trey Hopkins right now? I mean, you know what he was before the injury, but you don't know if he'll ever get back to that.
Well, I certainly thought that he improved over the course of the season, which isn't surprising. You know, he was even fresher off that ACL than Joe was, and so again, it shouldn't have surprised anyone for him to continue to improve as the season went on, and I'm proud of the job that he did there for us.
Are you able to say when Logan suffered the re-injury? The report that he played the Super Bowl with the torn leg.
Well, I mean, yeah, he suffered that weeks before, you know, and then sometimes it's just a chance to, all right, we have a chance to have the surgery for it to be more predictable going forward. And so sometimes those guys postseason have to make those decisions, and so again, he just did it so that it'll be more predictable going forward.
So the tear actually happened on the punt play against the Chargers, or did he further injury?
It was all part of that initial injury.
Okay.
You know, and he played through it, and those guys are tough. You know, and you know, we had some guys who did that earlier in the season as well. And sometimes you need surgery, sometimes you don't. Sometimes it becomes more predictable if you do. And each guy's got to make that decision. And you know, so Logan did it. Certainly, plenty of time to be able to recover and be back full speed for the season. And playing linebacker, that's a key spot. You know, for your shoulders to feel right, and so smart by him.
Any other players have cleanup procedures that you're aware of?
You know, there's some guys that are still going through that right now. So some decisions they have to make, and I won't go through the whole list of them, but anticipate everybody getting ready for the season.
Coach, what do you think it might with that Jackson comment? What did you see from him late in the year? Could he not play in the Super Bowl because of his back, or was that just a move?
Yeah, you know, it's tough. You've got a really difficult matchup in that Super Bowl. And you want guys to be full speed. And so, you know, I know over the course of the 2 weeks, there were times he was, times he wasn't. And so that's a tough one to be made. But I thought late in the season against Cleveland, he had a good game, you know, when he got a chance to get some of those opportunities. And those young linemen, him and Akeem, they had some tough matchups down the stretch, you know, and that's ultimately what people remember last, you know, outsiders that want to watch. And you got to block Chris Jones and Aaron Donald, and there aren't many people that love those matchups, and those guys got a chance to gain some valuable experience going against the best of the best, and that's going to serve them well in the long run.
People forget, I mean, you drafted 3 guys I think you think you last year. You got out of there with 3 guys I think you like and are probably going to be on the roster.
I mean, everybody wants everyone to be a day one starter and to hit the ground like a 10-year vet, and it takes a little bit of time. And we certainly feel good about the group we brought into the mix last year. We just wanted to see continued improvement from them. And now they get a chance to go through their first offseason, their first training camp, you know, as a real pro, second year. And I'm excited to see the growth that those guys are going to have.
Deontay, guard, tackle, whatever he plays into, do you have an idea?
A little bit.
Yet?
We'll continue to see how it shapes out this spring with how everything goes. But a lot of those guys got experience, Deontay included, playing a lot of different spots for us. Trey Hill playing 2 different spots for us. Jackson playing a couple different spots for us on both sides. And so I think that experience is going to serve them well as we go into the offseason.
Would you like him to just have kind of one spot to focus on over the OTA spring to kind of get better at?
You know, yeah, in a dream world, yes. But in the reality is you got to be ready to play a couple different spots. Unless you're just an entrenched starter who's earned his stripes, and this guy's your so-and-so. It's easier said than done. Of course, we'd rather one guy just play one spot and learn to do that. But the reality is these guys have to learn to play a couple different spots until they earn that spot. And they're a starter and they're an everyday starter. You got to be flexible and be able to move around.
Same thing for Akeem Adeniji, I imagine. Same
thing. You know, those are evaluations where we're continuing to go, and we'll get a chance now to sit down as a staff and really continue to formulate the plan going forward for free agency and the draft. And, we'll nail down all that stuff going into the future.
It didn't come up post-game, but I've been thinking about it for a while, that the Mixon touchdown pass, was that something that was in the book for a while, or was that something you put in specifically for the Super Bowl?
No, it was in for a couple of weeks. I think the Titans, we never got down there, so we never got a chance to run it. But I think that's when that one popped up. You know, we'd run a lot of the tosses down there, and so it popped up and it was ready to go. And
so the last 2 non-conventional touchdown passes in the Super Bowl were called by the Taylor brothers, right? Or not? Maybe because Press actually got it out of the archives, right? And he's the guy who's credited with getting it out of the archives. So
I'm not comfortable with that conversation. I can control what we called. We called that one, and it probably wasn't even my idea. It wasn't. I know it wasn't my idea. That was a combination of Frank Pollock and Brian Callahan and Troy Walters, and those guys that get the early start in the red zone, and they thought it was the right time to put in a play to complement some of the other stuff we did, and the words just come out of my mouth. But again, it's a collaborative effort and how it gets there.
So there's no inspiration from the Philly special.
No.
How often was Mixon on target with that pass when it was practiced?
No, well, we practiced it at UC. We didn't practice it out in front of the dorms, you know. And so he'd been trustworthy enough to where we felt good about executing it on 9 days rest.
You didn't think that everybody with their cameras in the windows was the right time to do that?
So.